Alright guys, welcome. So we've learned so far how to calculate moles of something from mass or moles of something from its volume if it's a gas, right? Now before we start jumping deep into calculations, you might want to spend some time looking at an equation. What does it signify? Now this equation is telling me what? Well, it's saying a magnesium reacts with half the amount of oxygen to produce magnesium oxide. ठीक है? But an equation like you can infer quickly what it's telling you, but I want you to see these chemical equations in a new light. Just think of them as recipes. What do I mean by that? Let me get some blue. All right. So what this is trying to say, if I have one magnesium, I'll need half the moles of oxygen to produce one mole of magnesium oxide. Or if I have 10 of these, I'll need 5 of these or to make 10 of these. If I have 2.5 of these, for my math is still good, it's 1.25 of this and 2.5 still of this. So it's just ratios. It's all the same. It's just a recipe. So why do I call it recipes is, let's say you're trying to make tea over here. You need 2 spoonfuls of patti, chai, right? And 1 cup of water, and this is a standard cup, to make 1 cup of chai, right? You have other ingredients, we're just highlighting these 2. Now moles, so what moles is trying to highlight is that if you have 2, or like with your agenda, the agenda is that if you have 2 spoons, let's say, of chai, how many chai can you make? Well, that's kind of obvious. 1, right? Like supposing you have unlimited amount of water, like that, like बहुत है पानी का तो मसला ही नहीं है. Or maybe पानी का मसला है. Let's say you can, मेहमान आए हुए, you have 10 cups of water. How many chai can you produce if you have plenty of chai, right? To use all of this water to entertain 10 guests, let's say, to make 10 cups of tea, how much patti do you need? Well, the answer is kind of obvious. It's 20. So these are the kind of questions you're doing. Let's kind of go back to the same equation and start thinking like this. You know, it's a recipe, but it's very similar questions. आपके पास product ingredient इतना है तो कितना आप बना सकते हैं खाना पीना. अगर आपके पास खाना इतना आपको बनाना है तो उसके लिए कितने चाहिए, you know, दाल चावल बनाना है तो चावल कितनी चाहिए, दाल कितनी चाहिए. These are the exact same questions what you do in cooking, you ask in moles. So let's say the question is, you have 6 moles of oxygen, and you want to figure out how much magnesium oxide you can produce if you have unlimited amount of magnesium. Well, is the question difficult? Not really. If I look at the ratio, for every 0.5 I'm making 1. So the relationship is twice, right? If this was 1, this would be 2, right? So for every 6, I'll guaranteed be making 12 of them, right? And if the question still asks, how much magnesium do you require for this? Well, it's the same amount, it's the same relationship, right? I could also use this now because I know this. So 1:1, so it has to be 12, right? And that's all you do in moles. The issue कब होता है? Issue ये होता है, they're not straightforward. They don't just give you the moles, like they won't ask you 6 moles and तो magnesium oxide कितना बनेगा. They'll tell you oxygen in terms of its mass or volume बता देंगे. बोलेंगे 16 gram oxygen है, और बोल देंगे there's 24,000 centimeter cube of oxygen. How much magnesium oxide can it produce? So what you have to do is take the question, write the equation down, convert everything into moles, then solve it. So let's write those instruction sets down. All right, for any moles question, these are the steps you need to follow. Okay, first thing, write down the equation. If it's already given to you, and if you have space, just write it down or just highlight it, especially in the first 20, 30, 40, 50 questions you do when you're practicing. Just write the equation down, like, like it'll help you understand what the question is trying to say. Because a lot of equations, you see it, oh, it's that ugly equation, and you just move on, you don't absorb it. So write it down and highlight the ratios. या तो उनके नीचे लिख लो या side में, whatever. Just highlight what the ratio is, because that's what the most important bit is. ठीक है? Once this is done, once you're clear, highlight question में पूछ क्या रहा है? What's the information given? Reactant का दिया हुआ है या product का दिया हुआ है? What it's trying to ask, right? So once you know that, calculate the moles from the information given in the question. तो जैसे reactants का दिया हुआ है mass में, so figure out its moles, right? You do that, that's step 2. And whatever is given, you figure it out, and आपस में उनके ratios पर निकाल लो. So if you figure out the initial reactant is 1 mole, and the product and the initial reactant ratio 1:1 hai, so the end product also has 1 mole would be produced if you have the same amount, right? Then once all of that is done, you're done. But the question has one caveat, which is that ये सिर्फ question जो है ना, सिर्फ moles में answer नहीं मांग रहा, it wants the answer in whatever it wants, either mass या volume में, or maybe it could be concentration or something, वो आगे आएगा, right? But whatever it's asking, you know the moles now, so we'll convert it back to the mass value if it's asking mass, or volume if it's asking volume, right? Mass will be easy, the equation is just moles over mass over mr, or volume is just multiplied by 24,000 decimeter cube. If it's a gas, of course, otherwise it wouldn't ask for volume. And it's that easy. And I'll make a bunch of videos literally going through these steps. This is my step, this is what I'm thinking in my head, even if you can't see it. I want you guys to write this down somewhere, write it down, and look at it every time you start a question. Just look at it, right? It's not hard. You do it 5 times, you'll remember it. And एक बार question होने लगेंगे, you'll feel so good about it. You'll start doing like 50 questions in like 2 hours. Like मसला ही नहीं है, right? Let's start.